Hello friends, welcome to this new video. Today is a little bit special. I wanted to make a complete guide of what you need when you want to start polymer clay. So in the same vein as the what's in my bag, here is my polymer clay bag and everything I have is inside this. So it's quite heavy, but we're going to go through it step by step. There's going to be the most important part, what I think I consider the essentials, and then the extras, so that you have an idea of what you really need and what's just for the plus. So without further ado, let's get into it. The first thing that you are going to need is obviously polymer clay. The most famous brands are Fimo, Cernit, Sculpey. These are not the brands I use. Mine are from a store called Action and they come in packs of 4 like that. Each pack is around $2 and it's been great for me. It doesn't dry. To store my polymer clay, I make sure the package is well sealed and well closed, and I've had them for 6 or 7 years and it still works perfectly fine for me. Next, you are going to need a working surface, and mine is simply a ceramic tile. The ceramic tile is really handy because it's not sticky and it doesn't have irregularities that could damage the shape of the creations you're making. You can find this in hardware shops. For the color, I chose white, which is actually not a color, but I think it's best when you want to get the harmony of a creation, of the colors of a creation. I think it's best to have a neutral color. Now let's move on to the accessories and the tools you're going to need to make polymer clay creations. So the first thing is a roller. Mine is an acrylic one, but you can find metal ones as well. It's really up to your preference and how you prefer to manipulate your clay. It's great to mix colors and to flatten the clay. Next up, we have the most dangerous tools of the whole video, which are some blades. So at first I had this very dangerous razor blade that my father gave me when I needed it, and it's super handy, but then I got this larger one, and to be honest, in the end I think I prefer the smaller one. I do not use this only to cut the clay, but also to peel the clay off the ceramic tile. When you're working on the ceramic tile, sometimes the clay sticks a little bit, even though it's not really complicated to peel it off, but this way you ensure that you are not damaging the shape of what you're making at all. In the same vein, I have this little cutter that is very handy for really any kind of work, and yes, that's the only thing I have to say about it. The next thing that I think is super handy is dotting tools. So these usually come in sets so that you have plenty of different sizes, and also a needle, which is super handy when you work with tiny little details or just to smooth out the surface of the clay, to merge two pieces together. So yes, for very small projects and details, it's really good. Now let's move on to the one tool that I cannot work without, and I actually have 2 types of it. I am talking about my silicone brushes. This is the most useful tool I have, I believe. For example, when you are working with 2 pieces of clay and you need to merge them together, this is absolutely perfect. When, for instance, you left a mark with your nail on the clay and you're telling yourself, oh my god, I just ruined it. Well, no, because you just need to brush a little bit with this and it will disappear as if it never existed. When you want to smooth out the surface, once again, just like the dotting tools, it's really handy. I believe at first it was made for acrylic paints, but I think it's more useful with polymer clay than it is with acrylic paints. Also, usually when you work with clay, you realize it in the moment, but it's really dusty all around, and the tiniest little dust can come stick on your creation, and that's really nerve-wracking. And for that, the thing you need to use is acetone. So this is nail polish remover, but there's acetone in it, and you just use a cotton bud, you scrape the surface a little bit, and the dust will just come away, and your creation will be very clean, ready to be put in the oven, which is the last thing you need with polymer clay. It's not like air dry clay, it needs to be baked, but if you don't have air dry clay, works very well as well. You just do not have exactly the same result because it's not the same clay you're working with. Okay, so that was all for the essentials I believe you need when you want to start polymer clay. Now let's move on to the extras. The first thing I would recommend is having a pasta machine. It's super useful to blend the colors really quickly and to have the same dough thickness throughout the whole length. I do not have one yet because I do not have much place to store it, but it's definitely something I would like to invest in the future. Then I would recommend having varnishes. So I have two here from Fimo and Sculpey, and apart from giving your clay this shiny and glazing effect, it also prevents your creation from falling apart if you have several little pieces stuck together. So varnishes are great for that. And if you do not really like the effect varnishes can have, I would recommend UV resin. So mine is this one. I use it with a simple UV lamp, just like this one. And to apply UV resin, it's a little bit tricky because it hardens just with sunlight, but you can use a simple brush, and once you're done with that, you let it sit into acetone for a dozen minutes, and then you clean it, and it should be fine. Some people do not manage to clean their brushes once they have used UV resin, but normally if you use acetone, it should be fine. Now I would like to introduce something that I believe has an incredible effect. I haven't used it very often, but it's liquid polymer clay. So this one is from Fimo, and basically what you can use this for is, for example, to give the eggs their runny looks, you know, or the omelettes their runny looks. You put a bit on the top of your egg and it will look like the egg is runny. You can also use it to have the water effect, all shiny and so. And that's a really great tool to make things look realistic. Now, it is also a good thing to have pliers. So I have 3 different types. The first one is to flatten the wire you're using. The second one is to cut it, and the last one is to create loops and hoops. And the wire I am using is a regular wire, and that is very useful when you're creating keychains, when you're creating jewelry, earrings, bracelets, necklaces. In that same vein, I have some keychains like this one, and you can just attach your polymer clay creation at the bottom. I also have some earrings just like these ones. These are hanging earrings, but you can also have ones that are not hanging. I also have some hair clips like this one, and I just stick the creation on top. And if you want to create magnets, for example, I have these tiny little magnets that are super useful as well. To elevate, if I may say, the look your creations have, you can use, I'm sorry for the noise, soft pastels. So soft pastels are very useful when you want to create a gradient, when you are creating, for example, bakeries or patisserie, or if you want to give this little pink effect on chicks, on little animals or little things you're making. Another thing that I absolutely love using are these tiny little strasses, decorations, glitters that I have in these little bottles. It's so great when you just want to add the one missing thing to your creation, and it's always a plus in my opinion. And anytime I feel like there's something missing on my creation or there's a blank space on my creation, I just take one of those and it always makes it better. Last but not least, this one is not necessarily really easy to find. It depends on what you're looking for, but you can order it on websites, I think. I'm talking about molds. So I have this one. I was gifted this one a few years ago. It's to make some cutlery, a plate, a mug, a teapot, and a smaller plate. I haven't used it yet, I believe, but I am planning to do so. It's just that I like to make the creation from A to Z myself, but if you are batch making things, it can be super handy, and it's always nice to have something to try out, something new. Well, friends, I think I have told you everything essential and extra that I believe you might want to know about or you might need when you want to start polymer clay. I hope this was useful, I hope this was helpful, and if you do start polymer clay, please tell me. I would be so happy to know about it. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments. I would be delighted to answer. And in the meantime, I hope you create wonderful things, and I will see you very soon. Sweet kisses.